Hello everyone, welcome to the third episode of Debrief, the Havas India podcast. I am Pritha Dasgupta, CMO of Havas India and your host. What does it take for an idea to travel? Not just across cities but across hearts, cultures, juries and continents. This special edition of Debrief dives into 3 campaigns from Havas India that are doing just that. Shaking up the status quo and taking a stand against the biggest global stage of them all, Cannes Lion. This year, we proudly present Cannes contenders 3 extraordinary pieces of work that don't just reflect creative excellence, but also reflect who we are, what we believe in, and the kind of future we want to shape through our ideas. From reimagining a nation's democratic symbol to using AI to comfort newborns, to floating a festival into the hearts of forgotten villages. These campaigns prove creativity isn't just about storytelling. It's about purpose and meaningful work that matters. To unpack the journey behind Ink of Democracy, Lullaby and Bhog Elo Boney, I am speaking to 4 powerhouses who shaped and steered these ideas. Welcome Joji Jacob, Regional Chief Creative Officer of Havas Southeast Asia and North Asia, and co-founder Block J Havas Singapore, Anupama Ramaswamy, Joint Managing Director and CCO of Havas Creative India, Sachin Talwalkar, CCO Havas Life Mumbai, and Mohit Joshi, CEO Havas Media Network India. Let's begin with Joji.
Hi Preeta.
Hi. So, Ink of Democracy, Lullaby and Bhog Elo Boney show how creativity at Havas India is being used as a force for good. From your APAC lens, Joji, how do you see purpose-led creativity shaping the region's voice on the global stage?
Sure. I think we in advertising have a responsibility to make the world a better place, right? So what we actually do is interrupt people's lives when they're doing really important things or when they are entertaining themselves. What we do is we go and interrupt and intrude into their lives. So the least we can do is make sure that whatever work we are creating is useful, relevant, and entertaining. So, which is why I think when a business objective meets purpose, it often has a powerful impact on society. So, and I think this is what the 3 campaigns that we're talking about do.
Questions for Mohit. With Bhog Elo Boney, Havas Play didn't just tell a story; it created a cultural moment with deep purpose. How does the network foster this kind of hyper-local storytelling that still feels globally powerful?
At Havas Media, we believe meaningful media is born not from telling stories, but from listening to communities, to culture, and to silence also. Bhog Elo Boney didn't start as a campaign. It started with a truth that in the world's largest celebration of feminine power, some of the most resilient women, the tiger widows of the Sundarbans, were being quietly erased. What made the work powerful wasn't scale, it was the specificity of this work. We embedded ourselves in the Sundarbans, learned from local voices, respected traditions, and co-created with the community. The idea of a floating pandal didn't come from a brainstorm, it came from lived experience. That's what makes a story hyperlocal, and that's also what makes it universal, because exclusion, laws, and the yearning for dignity is not an Indian issue. These are human issues. At Havas, we empower our teams to think beyond campaigns, to build cultural interventions, to nurture environments where strategists sit with sociologists and creatives are encouraged to break formats, not just briefs. That's how a local act of inclusion became a global conversation about what it means to truly belong.
Anu, I'll come to you. Ink of Democracy has been winning hearts and metals across LIA, AdFest, Spikes, Clios and counting. What do you think struck a universal chord with juries and audiences alike?
See, I think the best part about the campaign was it's not just a creative idea. It was meant to do a job. It was meant to get people to participate in the elections, which is the biggest thing for a country where we as people think of the election day as a holiday. So keeping that in mind, the conversion that it managed, I think that's what is making people look at it and also love it.
Okay, Sachin, I'll come to you next. Lullaby beautifully merges empathy with innovation. Can you take us through the genesis of the idea? What insight sparked it, and was there like a defining moment where it all clicked?
Right. Lullaby essentially is born into a platform that we had created for our client, which is For Her With Her. It's a platform that educates women expecting mothers about menstrual health, about prenatal and postnatal conditions. So the client is really invested in women's health. And since it's an ongoing campaign, we have been looking at new ways of engaging with the stakeholders, which are the doctors and mothers as well. And I think the Eureka moment came when we latched onto this brief that we got from the client, which was to create a platform that engages these new mothers with technology, right? And the vehicle of this platform were to be the HCPs. So one of the key success metrics in health communication is whether the doctors like the initiative, because that gives them an engaging platform. And I think that's where Lullaby kind of sets itself apart, because it really latches onto a purposeful idea where it helps newlywed mothers with the special condition that is portrayed in Lullaby to help connect with their babies using AI as a tech. And that really is the innovation click that kind of made this whole campaign happen.
Okay.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, of course.
So I think these two ideas that Sachin and Anu are talking about show the spectrum of what Havas Creative Network is capable of. So on one hand, we have totally reinvented a traditional medium like print, right, in a very innovative, clever way, and in a powerful way. And we have taken AI and we have mixed it together with a really very human cause. So I think that this is what we are capable of, the spectrum of work, right? Yeah.
Okay. Joji, I'll stay with you. You have championed a creative philosophy called Unreasonable, urging teams to go beyond the brief, the budget, and even the boundaries. How do these campaigns embody the ethos, particularly Ink of Democracy and Lullaby?
Sure. I mean, maybe again I can explain what I mean by unreasonable. So I will finish 33 years in this business, and I think the one thing that has helped me throughout my career is being unreasonable. So I learned to speak English when I was 16 years old. Till then, I used to go to a Hindi medium school. So that was unreasonable. Well, it so happened that I was in a place called Daman where everybody spoke English, so I had no choice, but I was culturally immersed into it. I come from a very small town in Kerala, but in spite of that, to make it into advertising, into big MNCs, which usually have, and at least when I started IIT people, so me with my very poor grades, my very inadequate command of English, and then to end up in Singapore and win some awards, I thought that was unreasonable, right? And our business is it's an art, it's not science. So unless we as the creators, if I have an idea, I'm the owner of that idea, I need to be unreasonable, because people who understand the world is out to kill good ideas, because good ideas are risky, they are new, people are not used to it, people are scared of it. So unless I'm unreasonable about it, which means even if a client says no 10 times, to go back to the client, not in a stubborn way, but every time there is a pushback, I go back with one idea plus the original idea that I really like. That is being unreasonable. Or let's say, for example, you might have a bit of a budget constraint, but then I work on the idea and I talk to people in the office, convince them. So all of that put together is what brings a great, brave new idea to life. So that in so many words is what I mean when I say we should be unreasonable. Now, both these ideas, if you look at it, the Ink of Democracy, the world's largest selling newspaper, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And to convince them to use to print in purple, that wouldn't have been easy. So right, but I think Anu and her team were like really unreasonable about it, right? Which is why we have the success that we have. And in Lullaby's case, I know that Sachin worked many rounds with the tech people to make it happen, because again, he used AI in a totally different way. So it would have been, in both cases, it would have been very easy to settle and say, oh, we'll just do a little bit of this, little bit of that, and then we won't have had the results that we have. So that is what I mean when I say, that is how I see both these campaigns having unreasonableness as a vital component of its success.
Mohit, I want to bring you in here. Joji's whole philosophy of unreasonable is primarily for creative agencies, but today media is just as unreasonably creative. With innovation blurring the lines between media and creative, do traditional boundaries even matter anymore? And how do you see this shift reshaping the future of integrated marketing in India?
That's a great question, and one that reflects exactly where the future is headed. At Havas Media, we often say media today is not the container, it's the content. In Bhog Elo Boney, the medium, the floating pandal was a message. That's the media idea, but rooted in a creative act. So yes, those boundaries are not just blurred, they're dissolving. The future of integrated marketing lies in cross-functional intuition. Creative teams need to think in formats, and media folks need to think in emotions. We are seeing this shift already, where storytelling, distribution, and experience design are all converging. In India, this convergence has even more power because the culture is very fluid, layered, and is deeply emotional. The brands that win will be the ones that can orchestrate this blend seamlessly, where media is as unreasonably human as the creativity behind it.
Okay, Anu, Sachin, Joji just explained how being unreasonable shaped him both professionally and personally. How do you apply the unreasonable philosophy in your work? Anu?
See, I think the starting point itself is the idea, right? Once you've got the idea, it's very easy to let go in case somebody from your own partners within the agency say, this is very difficult, let it be. How will you go about it? Same at the client's end. Guys, this will take too much time. Can we do it next year possibly? Those are common things that we continuously hear. The first thing that we need to tell ourselves and our teams is to go beyond that. Yes, this will be there. Everybody will say it's difficult, but that is the challenge. And that is the good thing, that it is difficult. The moment you overcome that and say, no, I will push it through, make it work, that is unreasonable. And I think if we have that inside as our DNA, it just makes life easy for everybody, because while thinking of the idea, you don't kill an idea thinking this is going to be difficult to execute, or it's going to have a lot of pushback from both clients as well as partners. You need to start thinking, let's find a way to make it happen. It's basically the typical glass half full or half empty conversation, right? It is about saying the glass is half full. So how do we make it happen rather than, oh, this is so easy to kill?
Sachin?
Yeah, I think, the biggest markdand of being unreasonable is that you have to feel scared about that idea. It has to make you sweat because it has never been done before. And I think the next step is to find unreasonable people to make it happen, right? Be it clients, be it your vendors, be it your tech partners. In case of Lullaby, for example, I spoke to many tech experts, and I think one differentiating factor of this idea was it was never done before, right? Like if you look at the tech itself, that particular piece of recreating someone's voice who's not able to speak or has it speech impaired as a condition, speech impairment as a condition, was never been done before. And I think there might have been 4 or 5 vendors who categorically said that it's not possible, it's not been done before. So we found an unreasonable partner. We found an unreasonable client who actually responded to this idea very excitedly. And I think that's the way to approach it. And it's so great that we, Havas as an organization, is owning up that philosophy. It gives a lot of assurance to so many other people who work with us within the organization and outside the organization. And I think it's just both the campus that we are talking about here is such a proof of that philosophy, that someone would have said that this is not possible, but here we are, where it is executed and it's been celebrated. So I think that's really the way to go, and that really is the proof of the pudding, really.
So, while we are discussing unreasonable work can also be viewed as edgy, risky. While we are talking about 3 campaigns, which is likely to bring a lot of glory to us, but every day thousands of ideas also get killed. How do you stay motivated in a situation like that?
By having more ideas than they can kill. I mean, it's inevitable, right? Because, like I said, our business is an art. It's like at least the creative part of it, right? And it's a very subjective thing. I mean, my favorite color might be white, yours might be blue. So similarly, clients might be something else. But I think, and clients are right in the sense that, I mean, at the end of the day, it's their job, it's their money, it's their budget that is on the line. So we need to be responsible. When I say unreasonable, I'm not saying that we go and say, no, you have to buy this. No. So sometimes it's coming back to the drawing board. It's like Winston Churchill said, going from failure to failure without any loss of enthusiasm, right? So that's also unreasonable. So it doesn't mean that I fall in love with my first idea and then I refuse to budge. That would be juvenile, right? Because we are a business at the end of the day. But we just have to keep on trying. We have to give our best. We have to bring the A game to every single brief. So in a lot of agencies, what happens is the first attempt is great, the second attempt, third attempt starts getting watered down. But what I'm hoping is that doesn't happen with us. That every time we go back with an idea that's even better, till the client says, "Wow, I really admire the conviction of these guys. Let me do it." And it's happened. It's happened again and again. I mean, in Times of India, in Lullaby, so many other cases from the region I can quote. There are ideas that have taken 3 years to come to fruition, right? Like the one we did from Singapore, it took 3 years for it to come to fruition. So, yeah.
Joji, is there any idea, any unreasonable idea or any idea that never saw the light of the day? Can you tell us the idea which is still very close to your heart?
Oh yeah, there are so many. I mean, it happens, right?
You don't really need to mention the category or the client, but if you can just tell us something that stayed with you but never saw the light of the day.
Yeah, so there was one idea which was I still think it's a great idea because for a telco brand, we were trying to create this is many years ago, maybe 8-9 years ago. We were trying to create an app. In those days, apps were just becoming fashionable, which was like a micro volunteering app for the blind. Right? Okay. So, for example, if I'm blind and I go and I see this pen, I can take a picture of the pen with that particular app, and then it gets sent to many micro volunteers, and then they can tell me it's a blue pen or it's broken, it's $3.50, etc., etc. It came to light in a certain way, but not as I would have liked it to. So there are many ideas like that, but I think the trick is to have more ideas than can be killed, right? Which is every day, every brief, every client, every brand is an opportunity to create something spectacular. Yeah. I mean, that's why we're in this business. I mean,
if I can add to this, I think, we have been doing this for a long time, and I think this question really should apply to the youngsters, right, who is in this business coming up with great ideas every day and still not being able to get it anywhere. I think a creative in an ad agency, I've observed, is the greatest optimist, because his ideas get killed on many, many levels till it gets finally killed by the client or the execution or whatever it is. But then there is another brief, and then there is another brief. So I think one has to be full of ideas, one has to be an eternal optimist, and one has to work towards it. So, many times the ideas don't get killed at the level of ideas. They get killed after a lot of craft and effort has gone into it, so it's not easy. But I think that's also a part of being unreasonable. Like, you need to keep on going, coming up with great ideas. If you're creative by nature, I think the next brief should excite you as much as the previous one, which didn't happen, And it's especially true of the young people in the agency. They need to look at this every brief, every possibility as an opportunity, and that's when they will be called unreasonable.
Anu, Sachin, I also wanted to check with you, ask that if there's any idea that never saw the light of the day, but you still feel there's potential.
No, first let me answer the first question.
Yeah.
The one thing that I tell all the youngsters who want to join advertising is the business of rejection.
Mhm.
So
True.
if you're not tenacious and if you do not have that positive glass half full mentality, then this is not for you. Because if you get demotivated at multiple levels by just hearing rejection or your idea not seeing the light of day, then there's no point of you being in advertising. In fact, I would like to tell a story about Ink itself, where Soham had come up with this idea and he was looking for someone to execute it because he's a copywriter and he couldn't execute it himself. There were many people in the agency itself who, I won't say rejected the idea, did not have time for it till he found somebody who could bring it to life. And that's what it is. He didn't give up on it.
Yes.
He just kept looking for a partner who could bring and have equal amount of passion for the same and bring it to life.
Sachin, any idea?
I would say you should not talk about ideas.
I think there are so many of them, but I think I don't feel that it's still rejected because it's still in my file.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
unless it's get killed by someone else doing it first, or the tech evolves or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think there are many ideas in the file which we are still fighting for, and I think Piyush Pandey had once told me, if someone, I mean, he himself has done it. I don't know whether I can quote Piyush in this podcast, but he has told me personally that he went and sold an idea to some other client when one client rejected it. So really for us, idea is the most important thing. It has to be, of course, relevant. It has to be on brief. It needs to answer what the client wants to do. It's not an idea for the sake of an idea. But I don't think we should kill good ideas. I think somewhere, some point, we can bring it alive and make it happen. So that's really the quest.
Every creative has a bottom shelf,
Correct.
which is full of ideas waiting to come to life.
In these times, it's bottom folder, but yeah.
Bottom folder. That's true.
Mohit, from a can lens, Bhog Elo Boney sits at the crossroads of brand experience, cultural storytelling, and social equity. Where do you think, Mohit, its strong creative edge lies?
Bhog Elo Boney's creative edge lies in its emotional precision. At Cannes, we often celebrate scale and spectacle, but what makes this work powerful is its intimacy with truth. The idea didn't come from a desire to tell a story. It came from the need to correct one that had been silenced for generations. What set it apart was its intersectionality. We brought together design thinking, cultural immersion, and digital commerce, not as parallel efforts, but as one unified gesture of empathy. A floating pandal wasn't just a creative device, it was a moving symbol of justice, of space reclaimed. This wasn't creativity built for impressions, it was built for impact. It challenged exclusion, not with provocation, but with participation. And that's where I think it truly shines, by showing that brand experience can be both reverent and radical. And that storytelling, when rooted in equity, doesn't just inform culture, it redefines it.
Joji, coming back to you, regional ideas with global resonance, that's not something which is easy to crack. How do you ensure that local creative energy aligns with international relevance and impact?
Yeah, I don't think regional ideas and global resonance are mutually exclusive, because the fundamentals still apply, right? A kiss is still a kiss, a sigh is still a sigh. So it's the same things that appeal to people: humor, something that moves them, something that excites them, something that rewards them. Yes, there are cultural levers. So, for example, if you look at, let's say, three distinct markets. You take Thailand, you take India, you take Japan. Three very different kind of markets, different cultural nuances. But the work travels really, really, really well. All these three countries do really well at, say, award shows like Cannes, where the jury is totally international. But at the same time, 10 people in a room from 10 different countries can look at a Thai piece of work, an Indian piece of work, and a Japanese piece of work, and agree that it's good, which means they've all understood it, they've all been moved by it. So I think it's just the I mean, I think the countries that do really well are the countries that are true to their culture as well and not simply ape the West. So, for example, Indian work is a great example of that. I mean, when you look at the piece of work, the insights, yes, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of agencies do the poverty porn part of it to make it more Indian. And I think I'm not a big fan of that kind of work, right? But if you look at the work, a lot of it is rooted in our, like Times of India, for example, or Lullaby, for example, is very rooted in our culture, right? About the lullaby being born between the mother and the baby. So, and if you look at Thai work, they're unashamedly Thai. But when we look at the Thai work, we are rolling on the floor laughing, so which means it has translated, right? Similarly, Japanese work is very, very Japanese, but it appeals to an international audience. So I think the trick is for the insight to be really rooted in the local culture, but then the appeal has to be more universal and human, right? So I think that is what it is.
Anu, coming back to you, ink as a campaign has turned a traditional medium, print, into a tool for protest, participation and purpose. Tell us how the idea took shape, were there challenges you face while bringing it to life, especially in terms of real world impact?
So let me give a little background to the whole thing, right? So the hallmark of Indian elections is the purple colored electoral ink that's applied on every voter's finger to prevent the duplication of votes. Last election, there was a 33% lower turnout and it left around 7,500 liters of ink unused. Now, what we started out was visualizing this data, right? So the pages of India's highest selling newspaper, which is Times of India, and the Economic Times, they were printed in purple ink instead of the traditional black. The moment you say something like this to a brand which is so big and so large scale, the first thing is for them to feel uncomfortable. The first thing is for them to say, how unreasonable are you to say something like this? And that's what happened. But I think what they also understood is that there is a larger task at hand, a greater good that needs to be done, because the fact is democracy was at stake and we needed people to get out of their comfort of the homes in peak summers, which is May and June of summer months, to come out, stand in line and cast their vote. Again, a very unreasonable thing, but we wanted to push people out and say, you need to see what you've done by not casting your vote last time and come out of your homes and do it. So imagine the timing that before every election, whether it was Bangalore or Delhi or Kolkata or Mumbai, a day before the election, they did this exercise. It was a huge back-end thing for them to do, and they pulled it off. Every election, and we know election does not happen on a single day, it happens in multiple days across 2 months. They prioritized and they made it happen. Now that's unreasonable. It's not just us being unreasonable, it was them also to make it happen. And the results were for everybody to see, right? 642 million voters as compared to the previous, a Guinness record was set. So you realize that it's actual tangible results that are there for judges and for people. So it's not just an advertising campaign, it's also something which showed us tangible results. And I think that's what is the bigness of the idea as well as execution in this case. And why everybody is loving it.
Mohit, Bhog Elo Boney reached remote communities that are often excluded from mainstream celebrations. How do you navigate the balance between logistical scale and cultural sensitivity in such a meaningful brand activation?
That balance between scale and sensitivity wasn't just a consideration, it was the core principle guiding Bhog Elo Boney. We knew from the start that we weren't just activating a brand moment, we were stepping into a space that carried generational pain, cultural silence, and scared tradition. The Sundarbans isn't merely remote, it's deeply nuanced. The tiger widows have lived through both personal loss and societal erasure, especially during Durga Puja, a festival meant to honor feminine strength. To navigate this, we didn't arrive with assumptions, we arrived with humility. Our teams collaborated with anthropologists, grassroots NGOs, and community leaders to ensure that every step was co-created and not imposed. From the floating pandal to the ritual distribution of bhog, every logistical decision passed through a single lens. Are we restoring dignity or simply staging optics? In the end, it wasn't about delivering an experience to the community. It was about creating it for them and creating it with them. This shift in approach made all the difference.
Sachin, Lullaby had to move not just parents but the entire medical community too. How did you strike that emotional balance, and what was the real world impact? Anu just spoke about the impact of ink. If you can also touch upon the impact of Lullaby, impact of its purpose-driven innovation.
Okay. I think, the way we started with this campaign was really to understand who we are talking to begin with. Of course, at the end of it, it was the speech-impaired mothers, new mothers, right? But it was also the medical community, especially the gynecologists. And what we realized is that they have been trying to create a conversation with their patients in a different and a new way all the time. So when we proposed this idea to the client, they immediately took it to their panel of gynecologists. And the response, I was told, and it was a mix of, it wasn't just female gynecologist, it was also male gynecologist. And they actually gave a very good, feedback on that, right? In terms of how they would want to deploy it, how they would want to use it. They had their own ideas as well. And at the end, what we realized is that, doctors are humans too. You can actually impress them with ideas that obviously give them a purpose to talk to their patients, but at the same time have had that emotional value in their conversations. So that was the beginning of the brief itself. So on a concept level itself, it was quite well received, right? And when we actually created this idea, the deployment of this idea or this platform actually happened through these 35,000 gynecologists that is empaneled with the client. So it wasn't because we are not allowed to go to the patients directly, since it's a health campaign, right? We actually deployed it through the gynecologist. And it was a platform that was created on the website itself. And the end result of it was that we had about 1,500 minutes of lullabies that were created within 6 months. This campaign itself was time-bound. It was launched only for 6 months. And now the next version of it is getting tested on how we can improve this tech to other areas of deployment. In the sense, right now it was limited to lullabies, but it could be about storytelling. It could be about fathers taking part into it, or mothers who are busy and who are traveling quite often. So the implication of the technology, or the real world implication of the technology itself, is quite comprehensive and impressive. But as far as the campaign is concerned, I think the greatest success was to have these 1,500 minutes of lullabies that were created, and I don't know how many bondings that happened through it.
Alright, 3 campaigns, 1 truth. When creativity meets conscience and purpose, it creates movements, not just messages. Thank you, Joji, Anu, Sachin and Mohit, for taking us behind the work and into the heart of it. Here's to ideas that don't just win awards, but win hearts, shift narratives, and remind the world why creativity with purpose is the most powerful currency we have. And with that, it's a wrap, and we will be back soon with another exciting episode of Debrief.